Reno Turikatani.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to take a call on part 3. And so I would like to return to what my colleague, Mr. Farfoy, was explaining before regards to the Canterbury water management strategy. And I believe, sir, that there's an internal inconsistency in the bill because the Minister earlier mentioned that the Canterbury water management strategy had no effect, had no force in law. And yet, a key part of that strategy, the vision and the principles, are expressed in this legislation in Schedule 3. So, in effect, sir, it does have the force of law because it's in the legislation. So, I think, and although there is a clause in Clause 19A2, it is unclear, sir, because in my mind, if the text of that particular Canterbury water management strategy is in the legislation, then it is law. It is law. It forms part of this piece of legislation. And so I think the Minister did, in my mind, he was quite misleading in terms of saying that it had a lesser relevance. But I would actually like to turn to the actual body of those visions and principles, because I think they are very relevant. And in particular, I would like to focus on I'll call it Section 3, kaitiakitanga. Wonderful to see that, and I'll read it out. The exercise of kaitiakitanga by Ngāi Tahu applies to all water, lakes, rivers, hapua, waterways and wetlands and shall be carried out in accordance with tikanga Māori. Now that, sir, is a wonderful primary principle that's been expressed in this legislation. And as a result, sir, I actually think that reinforces the standing that Ngāi Tahu has through its ability to appoint 2 appointees to ECAN. And so I do commend that particular section of the vision and the mission. Can I carry on, sir? Because if we carry on down to Section 5, Indigenous biodiversity. Indigenous flora and fauna and their habitats in rivers, streams, lakes, groundwater and wetlands are protected and valued. Again, music to the ear of all mana whenua, that the Indigenous biodiversity is specifically recognised and as a principle, and it actually forms part of the legislation. So, sir, the point I'm making is that while the Minister was, in his words, I believe, demeaning the actual importance of these principles, I believe the fact that these principles have been stated and have been included in this bill, in this legislation, elevates them to being within the legislation. They're not just a mere document, they are actually in the body of the legislation, and they form a critical part in the decision-making or in the process of the freshwater plans and regional policy statements. So, sir, I didn't want to underplay the importance of those principles because they are a central part of the process. And really, if we do look at Part 3, sir, we're really getting to the guts of what this whole, this hybrid ECAN setup is all about. And basically, it is all about the freshwater plans and regional policy statements and everything to do with water. And that's why this particular part of the legislation is only to do with that particular aspect. And if we go back to what the Minister said, there are 8 water zones in the ECAN area, and only 2 have operative plans. So that means that this successor new creation hybrid body has another 3 years to complete the process that section, this Part 3, that they'll have to follow to get those 6 plans in place. Now, sir, that is a monumental task when you consider The difficulty, Mr Chair, Mr
Call
Chair,
Jamie Lee Ross.